This podcast is sponsored by
Terraform Development proudly supports the Hopi tribe and nonprofit Hopi entities to provide essential technical support in engineering, architectural, and project management services. Eddie Kalniptua can relate to the hard work on the Hopi reservation, including the cornfield duties and traditional ceremonies that he was raised on. He values this tradition, so Terraform Development was formed to meet these needs on the Hopi reservation. Contact Terraform Development at TERRA4ORM.com and follow them on Instagram at Terraform Development.
Also sponsored by
Hi, I'm Kiona, Hopi Relief volunteer and board member. Hopi Relief is a grassroots, Hopi-led nonprofit organization founded to provide relief services, food boxes, and essential supplies to Hopi tribal members throughout the COVID-19 pandemic and beyond. Our focus is to uplift the Hopi community by empowering our people to create homegrown solutions to challenges we face. We are supported by the generosity of like-minded individuals and organizations who simply want to help. You can get involved by following us on social media, sharing our story, or donating on our website, www.hopirelief.org. We are at Hopi Relief on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Good morning, Hopi Land. Welcome to the famous Carl and J-Man Save the World podcast. Our last episode, you didn't say good morning, so I was thinking, oh, thank God he's finally gotten over that. But here it is. It's back again. Oh, man. Just like that cockroach you think you got rid of. And then it crawls out of from underneath the refrigerator or something. I wanted to say good morning because I've been up since 4 o'clock this morning and I haven't said good morning to the world yet. So good morning, everybody. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hey, it's just morning we're doing this. It's just morning we're doing this, okay? I'm trying to be inclusive to all the people that listen to the podcast. They don't get up at noontime. In the afternoons, in the evenings, night times. Well, again, thank you for listening to Carl and J-Man Save the World podcast. Thank you for listening to the podcast, and we're excited to be back with another exciting episode topic. Before we get into that, we got a new member of the 30-pack sponsor group, and we'd like to welcome Michaela Williams. All right. Well, thank you, Michaela Williams. To the 30-pack contributor area, and you'll definitely be a part of that list of invitations that go out first when we celebrate 1 million downloads. Oh, yeah, exactly. And whenever that may be. And thank you all for the sponsorships as well, too. So all of our 30-pack sponsors that are contributing to on Anchor, thank you for that. Big thank yous for that. Big kwakwa to you all for supporting us and helping us to expand the podcast. And today we got a very interesting episode. Oh, yeah. Today we're going to be talking about Rez Mentality. Rez Mentality. So what is Rez Mentality? It's something that you don't really hear about a whole lot, right? Like Rez Mentality. You hear about other things associated with the word Rez. Yeah. You're all rezzed out or, but then when you think about it, though, this Rez Mentality, I guess it's kind of, at least the way that I think about it, it's what the mentalities are of our people that live here on the reservation. Because if you think about it, it is kind of unique to a degree in comparison with like the larger, population of like the state of Arizona or the larger population of the United States. Yeah. And I think that when you think about a mentality, when you think about the way that a person thinks, that definitely a big contributor to how we think or how we perceive the world, how we perceive ourselves comes from our what's around us, our environment. See, when I was living in Tuba City, we used to call the suburbs John, so they're all Johned out. Is that the same thing as Rez Mentality? I think that the practice of doing that is a part of that mentality. And we've talked about, some of these different unique quirks in terms of, how we communicate with each other, how we talk with each other, how we treat each other. Yeah. And, because then because I think that this conversation really goes all the way back to the very beginning of the podcast, to those growing up Rez episodes. Because if you remember, one of the things that we mentioned was that when somebody falls and hurts themselves, that our instinct is to laugh.
To laugh first.
We laugh first before we check on them, before we, see if that they're okay. And I think that things like that are a part of that Rez mentality.
We're like, no, man, you know what? Man, look at that guy.
Are you speaking Chinese?
Trying not to curse on this episode here, so.
Yeah, I heard that your pet got flagged for some issues.
Yeah, I usually don't curse on these episodes, so.
I don't think that's part of the Rez mentality, Carl.
Well, anyway, the whole idea is because we grow up in, like I said before, like this fishbowl era where it's like we know each other's crap and we eat each other's crap on a daily basis. And so we think in a way where it's so small-minded, but yet we just kind of, have that mindset of just being together, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And, I think that that's true, because then when you think about, like the Rez mentality, it really is kind of that, I guess, to speak to a larger audience in phrases, terms that people might understand, like small town living.
Yeah.
Or small town mentality, because we really do live in this fishbowl that we've mentioned before, because then, for the most part, a lot of us that live on the reservation, we don't go outside the reservation very often.
No.
That we stay home, and, our places of employment, for those of us that do work, it's on the reservation. That the people that we visit, everything, it's all on the reservation. And so everything's pretty, I guess it stays in one place.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes like that, like your mind stays in one place.
Yeah.
And so, we kind of develop that type of mentality. We develop that type of thinking. And so, I guess that's kind of a reason as to why we think the way that we do sometimes for folks on the reservation. But what are some other reasons as to why we think the way that you do, or some other variables as to reasonings as to why you think we think the way that we think?
Boy, that was a hard sentence to say.
It was like trying to figure out where my cheese was and trying to get out of the maze.
Well, my understanding is that, yes, I did grow up on a village, or in a village, and I still live in a village today. And yes, we have neighbors that do, a lot of the Hopi stuff, and we do the Hopi stuff as well. And we're a very close-knit community. Is that the reason why is because there's so few of us that do actually live in the village itself, and we become a family, I guess you could say. So we know each other's schedules and each other's failures and successes and stuff. So
that's so funny that you say that, because it does remind me of like village living.
Yeah.
Right? Because village living is different from living any other way.
Yeah.
Because then out here on the Hopi reservation, I guess, something that we have mentioned before is that, you have these different communities.
Yeah.
On the Hopi reservation, and the village community is something that I guess is what is most consistent with how Hopis used to live long time ago.
Yeah.
Living within the village, but because of different reasons, people have moved outside of the village. And so you have a lot of these different trailer communities, mostly, that are outside of the village on lands that belong to the village. But when you actually live in the village, that it's a different type of living, because in any village, any Hopi village, most Hopi villages, that nobody really has their own space.
No.
In a way.
No.
Like you don't have a front yard that's specifically to yours. You don't have a backyard that's exclusively to your home. It's like everything is a shared space.
Oh, yeah.
Everything is a community space. And that Hopis, and this is, is kind of a big argument that I make, you hear that term, Indian time, which means, you're always late or you're always running behind. But Hopi time is early. Like most Hopis wake up before the sun comes up.
Well, I would have to kind of disagree with you with that. So most Hopis don't get up before the sun anymore. So,
Well, I guess you live in a different part of the reservation than I do. And, you think about the village, because oftentimes as a kid, staying down with my soul sometimes at her home in our village, that's something that I would remember, is that a lot of the people, I guess mostly the older people, that they would be up at the crack of dawn.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, everybody kind of had their routine. Certain people, you would see certain people walk out with their buckets to the village faucets at the same time every day, filling up their buckets with water for their home usage. Or you would see certain people go out and do certain activities related to their home living or something.
Oh, yeah.
At exactly the same time. And so you would have people in these routines. And I think that's probably is a village thing, is to have a routine.
Yeah. And so because every day what we do is that we get up and we have breakfast. Soul makes breakfast for us. And then we look out the window and we see the same people driving by, and it's like, oh, she's probably going to this place again. And then, then we know each other's schedule, and we're like, oh, did, who so-and-so already go to, dialysis again? And, oh, he's not even out his door yet. So we're,
Better go check on him.
Better go check on him. So it's I guess it's our routine to kind of like check. And I guess the neighbors do the same thing too. We'll say that, oh yeah, Carl's probably working in his office right now. And oh, you know what? It's probably lunchtime. He's probably going to go to the,
Carl's walking out back to the tumsoki. He's probably going to go rub one out again.
So, it's that Rez thinking that, yes, we are a community. Yes, we watch each other's back, and we make sure that our neighbors have enough food, enough water, enough wood to last them throughout the winters or summers. And it's just that, I guess you could say that we help each other in a way.
That type of dynamic, I think, is probably mostly with village living, I would say.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm sure, that type of dynamic probably exists in other places on the reservation outside of the villages. But you're right. You really do see that type of that type of community dynamic within the villages, where your neighbor's routines.
Yeah.
Or your neighbor's issues.
Yeah.
Because like that, which village members have to go to the hospital on a standing appointment for things like dialysis or other types of things. And you're saying, you're looking out the window, kind of watching out for everybody's things. And then, there's certain people in the village, oh, so-and-so's on a binge again. And you guys better stay inside today.
And two, it's like, I guess it's Soul's entertainment, sort of like. So like, like our neighbor, one of our neighbors, she's in a certain situation. She's like, oh, look at her. She's with another guy.
That's social media.
Yeah, social media is
Soul's version of looking at people's timelines.
She's like, she's not even with that man anymore. Where's that other guy?
That's so funny, because then, like, I recall, times, staying with my so'o, that so'o would probably get at least 3 to 4 visitors a day.
Yeah.
And they're all so'os.
Yeah.
They're all old ladies from, different households, and they'll come, and that's what they'll do. They'll gossip.
Just gossip.
They'll do the business first. Do you have extra this? Do you have extra that? But once that's put aside, then they'll gossip.
Yeah.
And then they'll start talking about, different people in the village, or, for their own families and what people are doing.
And it's weird because, the same thing with Soul, the famous Soul. She has visitors that come, and her sisters would come over and they would gossip for hours on end. And I'm a regular Hopi man, and expecting a meal during certain times. And I know some of you out there are probably like, just cook for yourself. It's like, no way. If you have Soul that cooks good food, you might as well take advantage of Soul's good food.
You're like Will Ferrell's character on The Wedding Crashers. So, where's my meatloaf? So, meatloaf. I never know where she is.
So, I mean,
I can attest Carl is that kind of guy.
Yeah. I mean, like, I mean, it's nothing bad. It's just that Soul has good cooking skills, and I just want to keep her skills.
There's this wonderful product, Carl. It's called ramen noodles. You put water into a pot and you put it on boil. As soon as it boils, you open the package, you drop the raw noodles into the water. 5 minutes later, you're good to go.
Yeah, Soul does that for me too. So, so did you cut the crust off of my
PB&J? My grilled cheese.
My grilled cheese, Soul? Is my grilled cheese ready, Soul?
I didn't get the memo that we're having dessert today, Soul.
I didn't get any menu today. You didn't Facebook me this menu.
But I guess, that is part of what the development is in terms of like how we think or even, how we look at the world. But, there's some other things too, I think, as to the reasons why we have these reservation mentalities. Some of them, is the fact that we don't have a lot of money.
No.
Most people out here on the reservation, we don't have a lot of money. And so that leads us to kind of try to do our best without. And then the other thing too is that in our perception, at least, is that we don't have a lot of opportunity in terms of the white man's world.
No, we don't.
Out here, we don't have a lot of employment opportunities. There aren't a lot of educational opportunities that you would see in the cities, especially for things like neighborhoods. Like there's no YMCA.
No.
There's no clubs of any kind.
The big brothers, big sisters.
Big brothers, big sisters. There's no golf greens that, if you're a man and you want to get out of your house to go whack some balls off, that those things aren't present out here. And so, I think that the fact that we do have things like TV, we have things like internet, that we do see how the rest of the world lives.
Yeah.
And that we see that the rest of the world has these opportunities, that they have these, what we think are enhancements in their life because they have things like, I don't know, big malls and places to shop, nice restaurants. We see kids with really nice education schools, and they have involvement with things like soccer on the weekends, and soccer moms is something that's non-existent out here on the reservation.
Yeah.
And so I think that kind of develops a certain mentality that sometimes we feel like we're being left out.
Well, I guess you could say it is we're being left out in the world, but when you really look at it, we don't really need any of those things to be happy or to survive. Yes, of course, we do need money to survive nowadays, but I guess you could say that we just don't have that bahana mentality to say that I need a soccer team, or I need to...
You never wanted to be on a soccer team?
No, I never wanted to be on a soccer team. Or like, I want to go hit some little white balls around. and no, I'm not talking about the white men. I'm talking about golf,
But I mean, I think that, when I think about being a kid and, having the ability to see what the world lives like through television or through the internet. Well, I guess not really the internet back in our days.
Yeah.
But then, you saw kids play things like baseball.
Yeah.
You saw kids play things like football, although we did play football. One of the things about football when we used to play as a kid, I always used to wonder like, oh man, it's probably so nice to get tackled on nice soft green grass instead of getting tackled on our hard rocky soil that's out here that we play football on.
That's how you separate the men from the boys there.
It'd be so nice not to come up with cuts on my elbows every time I go down to the ground.
I can't wear shortcuts because my knees are just all scraped up. And I know,
those are some of the things that I do think about in terms of, well, at least from my own experiences and the way that I thought was that, because through other means you saw what the rest of the world lived like. And then you always wondered what would it be like to have those things. And I think especially as I got older, because like thinking like in high school, right?
Yeah.
Like you watch TV and, some of these shows, the kids that are depicted in these shows, they go to certain schools and they have things like golf teams.
Yeah.
Or they have things like tennis teams, things like that, like soccer, for example.
Yeah.
And it's like, I've never really been at a school that had a soccer team.
There is the Hopi soccer league out here.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think they started it a few years ago, but I don't know if it's still going on or I don't know what's happened with that. But yeah, there was a soccer league out here on the Hopi reservation. I don't know where they played at, on the cement in the on the in the basketball courts.
They probably played in one of the school gymnasiums and indoor soccer league. But you did say something though that because the fact that we are Hopi, that we didn't really look at some of the components of the white man's lifestyle and really yearn for those things.
Yeah.
Because we had our own way of life to a degree that we still maintained. And so I guess based off of Hopi culture, Hopi religion, and Hopi language, how do you think that helped to mold the mentalities out here on the reservation?
I guess what it means is that it kept our traditions strong. It kept our culture strong without the so much huge influence from Bahanas or huge influence from the white men, is because we didn't think of the white man first. We thought about the Hopi religion first. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I guess that's the reason why our culture is so strong, is because we think in a way where Hopi should come first, then everything else should come second.
Unless it comes to the green.
Unless you're paying somebody or you're getting money from somebody.
Unless it comes to, should I pay respect to my culture or should I make that Facebook post?
Yeah, exactly. And, or when you're smoking and praying, should I pray for rain or pray for more money?
But you are right, though. I mean, because then, you think about the mentalities. I think that definitely one of the things that I think about a Rez mentality that's specific and unique to Hopi is that when you think about your older family members, people that you're supposed to get an education from, your tahas, your fathers, your kwa'as, that they really would teach you lessons about how to think about the world from a Hopi context.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think that was kind of a little bit different because then, thinking about being a boy, that you did learn a lot of concepts about the world through a Hopi lens, which I think was so unique. And then we've talked about a lot of those in terms of like as young boys, how you approach the field work, working down in the fields, how they taught you the importance of that and the reasonings as to why we did some of those things. During ceremony time, you would learn what was so special about that time of year and about the specific ceremony that was going on. And then so in a way, how on the white man's side, you have this calendar, January, February, March, all the way through till December. But in Hopi, we had our own calendar that we knew that certain things were going to happen in the villages during these times of the year. And so right around New Year's, right before New Year's, right after, in between New Year's and Christmas, you knew that you had to wake up early. And, because you had to go pray because that was prayer feather time.
Yeah.
And then going into February, you knew that the bean dance was going to come around and you're going to get a new auta if you're on the third mesa side, but you guys get those weird sticks out on the second mesa side, the talwi pikis.
Yeah.
And then, and so forth all the way till you go back around. And that there are all these different things that happen throughout the village. And so all of these different ceremonials and occurrences, certain people would be busy with certain types of things. And then so you would see on both sides, the male and the female side, different types of activities happening.
Yeah.
For the men, usually they're down in the kiva preparing for something. On the women's side, they'll either be cleaning corn, grinding corn, or getting certain types of meal ingredients ready. Because even that's something that's unique too, is that certain types of dishes are consumed at different times of the year.
Yeah.
And so I think that the fact that we still had these strong ceremonies going on, or the fact that the ceremonies were still going on, that we still had this strong perception of how we perceived the world as Hopis, that really did mold our mentalities in how we thought of things.
Yeah, excellent point of view. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break here.
Strong Ones. Every Strong One's design has a story and a unique meaning. They create designs to celebrate traditions of running and uplift Native cultures across the globe. They also partner with local artists on special projects in hopes to expose talent and creativity of Hopi people. Strong Ones are often referred to as Hohongvit in the Hopi language. They can be found at hohongvit.com. That's HOHONGVIT.com.
And we're back. And so, laying out some of those contexts about why we think the way that we do, what it is that we think about. There's this one term that, you kind of hear often related to not just Hopis, but Native people in general, is this term of being res.
Yeah.
Or this phrase of you're all rezzed out. What does that mean to be rezzed out?
I guess
why do we say that?
I guess, when we were back in high school, we used to call each other's Johnnies and stuff like that.
Johnnies. I even heard the term Hopi John.
Hopi John.
I've never heard a term or a phrase that describes Hopis that act, I guess, real rezzed out. And I think that's what that term John is, right? Except it's for the Navajos.
Yeah, it's like you're acting, you have like this certain like speech that you're talking about, or like and we just call them all Johned out. And I'm pretty sure that, that's a Navajo word for like something offensive.
But then, you do think about that, because then I think about that term rezzed out or being res.
Yeah.
And I think that some of it goes back to a lot of what we talked about is having a certain type of mentality.
Yeah.
And I think that what part of that mentality is, or how you approach things, is it's almost like a poor man's way of life, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
To be rezzed out. Or to be res, because then we've mentioned that, out here on the reservation, that a lot of people don't have a lot of money. A lot of people don't have a lot of resources. And so, you do the best with what you've got. And so I think really that's what that term means, being rezzed out, or you're all res, is that you're doing things with little, but you're making the most of it.
Yeah.
And then so like you hear some of these jokes in reference to being rezzed out. It's like you're a real Indian if you use blankets for your window
your
drapes.
window drapes. Actually, we do have some blankets around here. So
and that's a concept like that, because then it's like, I have all these blankets. Why would I go to the store and buy window drapes if I got these blankets? And then so you hang these blankets up to cover your windows.
Exactly. If you don't have a blanket hanging as your door,
are you even native? But I think that, the prime example of this idea of being res or being rezzed out, I think one of the shining examples is Frybread.
Oh, yeah.
It's Frybread, because Frybread is something that's a universal food that most Native communities consume. And I think even the story of Frybread and how it was developed, that you think about when the United States government, the federal government, first started creating reservations, when they first started, I guess, corralling our people and forcing them to live in these small confined areas, whether that was on their own heritage homelands, or if they were forcibly removed from someplace else and then having to live in a different place. Is that you always hear these stories that they got something called rations, and rations were types of ingredients that were afforded to them by the federal government so that they could live. And it was through these rations that they developed Frybread, because then they were given things like lard, they were given things like numni, flour, salt, and from that they were able to make this dough and then cook this dough into the Frybread. And so I think that that's kind of like one of the examples of being rezzed out, is making something out of very little.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. I guess you could say that that's the birth of how Frybread came to be. And a lot of Native Americans out here do make Frybread, and it's I guess it's called different things in different regions.
It's called different things in different places. Everyone argues about who invented Frybread and whose Frybread is better. And Hopis were just kind of, we don't really care.
Yeah, we don't really care as long as we put some beans on it and call it a day.
As long as you put a handful of salt on it, then we're good.
Exactly. But I can tell you one thing is that the white man actually invented Frybread.
What?
Yeah, white man actually did invent Frybread.
What are you talking about? Donuts?
No, he actually invented Frybread. He said that here's some ingredients, try to make it work, and you know what? Make some Frybread while you're at it. So I think the white man did invent Frybread.
Crickets, chirp, chirp.
No, it's for real. White man did invent Frybread.
I don't think you're going to find anybody out there that's going to agree with you, Carl.
Yeah, a white man will probably agree with me.
But then I guess, thinking of that concept of being rezzed out, what are some other examples that you can think of from your childhood of kind of some of the different things that you've seen to where you're utilizing other types of things for a different purpose than what its intention was?
Like dirt's supposed to stay outside and we put it in our mouths. It's not how you're supposed to use that. So let's see. We rode bikes with flat tires.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. We jumped down the cliff to see how far we can land before we break anything.
For your entertainment.
For your entertainment.
One of the things that I remember is that at my So'o's house, she used to have an old refrigerator outside. Yeah. But that was kind of like a storage shelf.
Yeah.
It was a storage area. So you had real old school refrigerator, and then you opened it, and there was all kinds of seeds in there.
Yeah.
And all of these different seeds are in containers, pickle jar containers, Cool Whip containers. And I think that that's kind of another joke about being rezzed out is that we use things like the Cool Whip containers. We save them afterwards.
The butter, I can't believe it's not butter.
I can't believe it's not butter. Or you remember those those big circular tin cans that held those cookies
Oh,
in
yeah,
it?
the little butter bread cookies.
And that was another joke, was that everybody had all her sewing supplies in there.
Actually, So still has her sewing supplies in the tin thing. And I was like, cool, cookies. I opened it up. It's like, this is just So's sewing stuff.
That's funny because I think that's happened to a lot of us, that you go into your So'o's home and then you see a tin of something that you think it's a treat. You think it's cookies or you think it's something, and you open it and it's just some other thing that's in there. But that's something that we do. The old ladies, that they'll hold on to those containers and they'll keep them because then that they find a different use for them than for whatever it is that came in. And then I think that, anybody that's growing up on the reservation is that, you had things like, because we played sports, right?
Oh, yeah.
We played a lot of sports, and you talked about, playing football and getting tackled on some gravel, or playing other things. We talked about in other episodes, playing things like Smear the Queer and, just throwing things down. For some reason, like, we were violent. Like, I don't know why. Like, a lot of our games involve violence.
Like 90s kids were so violent that, hey, we grew up okay. I mean, like back then, we used to do tag, like the tag thing, but we used to make it interesting where we would tag and then just push them hard to the ground. And then, the kid would be crying or huffing or trying to get air because he fell weird, and you're just laughing.
But we would do things like that. But, I think that a universal sport, too, that all natives like to play is basketball.
Oh, yeah.
And so, the idea of playing basketball, that you have to have a basketball hoop. And so I remember in those early days, like, you would see makeshift basketball hoops. They'd be made out of like the wooden buckets, but they would cut the bottom out, either those or the green milk crates that the singular school servings of milk would come in.
Well, with us, what we did was that we got the tire rim from a bicycle.
Yeah.
Cut out the spokes and then just nailed it to the side of So'o's timtoki. We got in trouble for that because, we nailed into her timtoki and she didn't like that. So.
And so you did things like that with the basketball. But with the basketball, one thing that always used to make me laugh is because you think about, basketball, you turn on ESPN, there's hardwood.
Yeah.
Or when you go to a school, there's a gym where there's either hardwood or concrete where the ball actually bounces the way that it's supposed to. But then out here on the reservation, it's like you played on dirt courts. And I remember I had a friend and he was from the city, and he would say, he's like, the reason why you guys from the res are all good at basketball is because when you bounce the ball on the ground, that it goes in a different direction.
So you learn how to
that
control
it's supposed to go. And so you learn how to control the basketball by bouncing it in the way that you think it's going to bounce. And so that's how you get good at handling the ball.
See, when we were growing up, we never used to have a basketball. We just used to shoot with like our soccer ball that we found, or maybe like a volleyball that we didn't even know it was a volleyball. And so we used to play basketball with that. It wasn't until our later years that So bought us a basketball
Yeah, that was often, I guess that was a pretty common practice.
Yeah.
That you wouldn't use the right balls for certain things.
Just whatever is round and you can.
Whatever is around and whatever you think will work. Because then like that, like if you're a village kid, right?
Remember that game Horse?
Yeah, Horse.
Yeah, Horse. Yeah, we used to do a lot of that where we used to, shoot from odd angles and stuff like that. I remember one time we had our basketball court was right across the road, and we said, let's play Horse. So we started throwing the ball across the road and stuff like that, try to make it and everything like that. And we actually hit a car, and we got in trouble for that too. So
the thing that I was gonna say is that because you learn about some of these sports through the TV or something like that. So you want to play bowling, right? Nobody has real bowling pins, so you're walking around the village and you're playing bowling with T-Bird bottles or Budweiser bottles.
Actually, one time my soul bought a bowling set. Remember those little plastic bowling set?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, cool. So but I didn't have a lane or like we had dirt. And so I made one out of like cardboard.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted it to be smooth. And you know how like the thing that you catch the ball and the little pins go in?
Yeah.
I found a rusty old, drum.
Yeah.
Yeah, those metal drums. And there was like jagged edges around there. And I was like, okay, so I set it up and I'm playing, bowling by myself, and I was having a good time. And I went over there to go set up my pins, and I got cut on the rusty thing. I still have a scar on my head. This is Rez bowling out here. You get hurt in the process.
Well, the thing that you said that kind of reminded something in me too is that, you talked about a car, but there was a lot of broken down vehicles all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember that there was a couple of broken down cars near where we used to grow up at my Soa's house.
Yeah.
And it was, those broken cars were kind of fun because then you would go into them and you would sit in there and you would pretend like it's a rocket ship. Because then when you go into an actual working vehicle and you start pressing the button, someone gets pissed at you. But then when you go into the broken down cars, you're pressing everything, acting like you're blasting off to Mars.
And remember the cars back then, they were stick shift.
Yeah.
So I would used to do the same thing too. You go in there and then shift all these things and stuff like that. I was like, what does this do?
You're sitting in there, you're like 5 or 6 years old, already countdown, Houston, 10, 9, as you're ready to blast off into space.
in your Rez rocket.
In your Rez rocket.
But yeah, I mean, like during childhood, we had all of these different things, and we didn't have like playgrounds to go to.
Oh no.
Yeah, we didn't have grass.
At least back in our days.
Yeah, back in our days, we didn't have like grass that we could go and lay.
What's grass?
Yeah, I mean, the first time I walked on grass and I'm like, this is so soft and springy. And even to this day too, because we don't walk on grass hardly. And when we go to a grass field and we're like, ooh, this feels really nice on my feet here.
You feel fancy.
You feel fancy. And it's like, we should have a picnic out here, and I brought my bologna.
Well, the other thing too that I kind of wanted to talk about in terms of like this Rez mentality, and you see a lot of jokes and memes on the internet, on Facebook or social media in terms of Native people specifically about the places that we shop, and that these two places that they talk about being this Indian mall, I guess, is Walmart.
Walmart.
And that there's a lot of jokes on there about natives and Walmart, but then it's a place that you see natives a lot, whether you're in Flagstaff or Gallup, some of these local Walmarts. I think there's one in Winslow too.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that the reason why you see us there is because it's a cheaper price for a lot of the products that are there in comparison to a lot of the other places. And then the flea market is that, I guess there isn't really one in Hopi, but Tuba has one that they used to have on the Fridays. And then for those of us that would travel down to Phoenix, that you would have the big one over by that Greyhound Park.
Oh, yeah, the big flea market thing. What is it? Yeah, the Greyhound Park.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's called. Park and Swap.
Park and Swap.
Yeah.
And so those are the places that we used to go to. And I think that any Hopi kid growing up on the reservation, at least during our time, that when you had traveled out to Phoenix, that was always a stop, was going to Park and Swap. Swap. And I haven't been there in quite some time. The last time that I went, it was so much smaller than from what I remember it used to being. But you could find some really cool stuff that you can't find anywhere else.
I like the knives over there. You know, those Mexican guys that have the knives. And I remember one year, I asked Sol to buy me an axe, like a battle axe. No, this is a true story here. Okay. So this is a true story.
I shouldn't laugh because then I think that one of my nephews, it was a goal of ours to get one of those real nunchucks that they used to sell at Park and Swap.
So this is a true story here. We went to Park and Swap and I was probably maybe like 10, 12 years old and I was going by myself and I felt independent.
So maybe a battle axe.
And it was weird because, you know, they had these different aisles and I'm like looking around and I saw some phones and I'm like, yeah, it's boring stuff here. And I saw some Mexican guy, you know, had like these display of knives and I was like, oh, cool knives. And I seen like in this display box was a battle axe. It's a 2-headed battle axe. And I'm like, that's what I want. So I run to my Sol, you know, they're eating ice cream and churros and I'm like, Sol, I found something that I want. It only costs like $75. And she's like, okay, well, let's go over there. And we go to the knives and she's like, you want a knife? And I'm like, no, I want the battle axe, Sol. And she's like, why do you want a battle axe? And I'm like, so I can chop wood. And so, you know, I don't know how I talked Sol into buying.
She bought it.
She bought me the battle axe. You know, it was pretty cool. Man, it was so cool, and it was like it was cheaply made. You know, that it was like, you know, it had like a steel pipe, like a regular steel pipe with just a cutout of a battle axe, you know, welded in there, tacked in there, and I thought it was so cool. And back then, you know, you listen to heavy metal and I was like listening to heavy metal with my battle axe, you know, listening to Slayer back then, battle axe in it, and, you know, Ozzy Osbourne, you know. And that was the day. That was the best days of my life, is, you know, Sol buying me battle axes and stuff like that.
I still haven't stopped laughing. That's like the most carless thing in the world, is to get someone to buy you a battle axe from this Park and Swap.
It was cool.
I think some of the most memorable things that I can think, I don't think I've ever gotten my parents to buy me anything above the $20 level at Park and Swap. But I mean, some of the things, you remember that monkey that used to be
that's what I was going to say that day.
And then you would hand out like $1 or some coins, and then he'd walk up to you and he'd
grab it from you
and he'd put it in his pocket. That was another thing. But the other thing too that I really used to like was there was this one black man that used to sell pop. On your way out as you were driving out. And so he'd be standing there, you know, ice cold. And then you'd stop and then you give him some money and then you get some cold pop. And it was always good to have, because in Phoenix, especially
hot
during the summertime or during some of the hot months, and you're just outside walking around out there at Park and Swap, and then you get some pop from the black man. And man, that was really, really soothing.
Yeah, remember Park and Swap never used to have those overhead things before?
Oh, that's right. That's
right.
And
then now they put it over there, so it got hot.
Yeah, it got hot. But you know, those are some of the places that we used to shop at, and I think just really because of the cost, and you find things that, you know, you don't see in some of the stores. But I guess kind of going back on, you know, talking about that Rez mentality, is that, you know, what do you think some of the pros and cons are of the way that we think?
Well, what I think is that, you know, we become close-minded, and we become so close-minded to the fact that we don't want to experience anything new in our villages. We don't want anything new. Like right now, we're in Hotvela, we don't, you know, some of our elders don't want electricity or want running water or want anything that can help us in the future. And so that I guess it kind of is a downfall because of that, and which makes it very, very hard for us to to have these necessities.
Yeah, that I guess closed-mindedness is something that we've talked about in a lot of the different episodes. And, we don't want change. Yeah. We don't want our cheese to be moved.
No.
That we want things to stay the same. We don't want to accept things like, have you ever heard this concept? I think it's something that they do out in the cities now, but it's something called gender terms or something like that.
Yeah, like they or them. Yeah.
Like because then I've brought that idea up to some people out here, and they kind of laugh at it.
Yeah,
because then they don't really understand the purpose of it or why it exists, the gender neutral terms or something like that. But it's basically how you choose to identify yourself and how you would like others to identify you, because then you have folks out there that are male or female biologically, but they don't identify as male or female, and so they would prefer to be referred to as by their appropriate nouns, which is them, they, or theirs. Yeah. But for guys like us, it would be he, his, and his, or something like that.
No, it would if we were something like that, then we would be the same way, them or their, right?
No, I identify as a male.
I know, but if you were not identified as both male and female and you wanted to do the pronoun thing, it would be like them, their.
No, for guys, it's like if you identify as a male, it's his.
Oh, yeah. Like the pronouns. Yeah.
Yeah. Something like that.
Okay.
Anyway, but
confusing right now.
But that, that's an example of things that we're not really open to.
Yeah.
Because then, like how it's always just been men and women.
Yeah.
And so, that's kind of an example of what some of the cons might be. Some of the cons, you do see it on social media a lot, is that we're a very reactionary based community.
Oh, yeah.
That when something happens, we're quick to react, and it's often with negativity.
It is.
When you see changes made by leadership, when you see changes made within our communities, it's always negative in how we react to it. Why are they doing this? How come they don't do it this way? And it's always a response in that manner is, how come somebody else isn't doing this? It's never, how can I help to fix this problem?
Yeah, I mean, like it's weird because even our leadership here, he's constantly, being bombarded by all of his past life because he was an alcoholic in the past. And even to this day, even when he's sober so many years afterwards, giving up that life to pursue something better, that is always brought up in the first segment of asking him questions.
So when he does something that we don't like, and the response is, because he's
just a drunk.
Because he's a drunkard.
Yeah.
That's why he's making these decisions.
That's that whole negativity that surrounds us every time.
We don't think sometimes, I guess, is the issue.
Yeah, that's true. We speak before we think.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what I mean by we're a reactionary society. And that's sometimes, like a lot of the times that negativity really is the driving force in how we communicate with people, because then I shared this meme on our Instagram, and it says, how do you say good for you in Hopi? And the answer is naspi.
Must be this guy here. Must be nice.
Must be nice. And so, that's kind of what that means.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Like, you're not really happy for them, but it's just like, well, good for you.
Or you just say, this guy.
But I guess going on the other side, what do you think some pros are in terms of how we think?
I guess the strong culture part of it is the pro part of it. Is that even though we are closed-minded, it does play a huge advantage, because if we were open-minded to everything out there, then yes, we would have like shopping malls in our villages, and we would have, McDonald's at the end of our village.
Our outhouses would be gender neutral.
Gender neutral.
Well, I guess
it is a gender neutral bathroom. And, and without them saying that, okay, we don't want this in our village because we want to preserve this
idea of what Hopi is.
Yeah, exactly. And that, I guess that goes and plays that pro part of it. So.
And I think, I didn't really get to speak on it a whole lot at the beginning when we talked about it, but it really is, maintaining those Hopi values, maintaining those traditional ideals of how we're supposed to be stewards of the earth, of how we're supposed to take care of the earth. Although that there's probably some Hopis listening to this right now and they're like, well, what about the dump sites where people just dump trash on the side of the mesa? But, for some of us, we still have that idea where, you're supposed to take care of the land. Where you have this idea that, that human beings aren't really above other life forms like animals and insects and other types of plant life.
That we're all created
we live
equal
in this universe together as a whole. And so, I think that the fact that we maintain some of those ideas and we maintain that type of mentality that I've always thought was a strong thing about us. And even just the way that we grew up, the fact that I think that we were raised tough. And because we were raised tough, that makes us resilient people. The fact that we can endure a lot of, what some of the bad things are going on out there in life. And that's always kind of been a difficult thing for me to kind of, I guess, go through when you hear about some of these new concepts of things like mental health, that this day and age, that it's supposed to be okay to talk about your feelings, that it's supposed to be okay to go seek help.
Yeah.
Because in the way that we were raised as village people or reservation people was that as a Hopi male, you deal with your feelings yourself.
Oh, yeah.
You take care of everything yourself, and you're supposed to be the strength of your family. That's why you never saw your father cry.
No.
You never saw your kwa'a cry.
No.
Because they're supposed to be the strength and the anchor of your family. And that's something that I always took to heart because I did see that as strength. The fact that our men could go through certain types of difficult things within their lives, within the world, with, some of these bad things that happen to our families.
Yeah.
But yet they maintained their composure. And that's something that I did and still do see as strength, even though that the communication that you hear now in a way kind of disagrees with that.
Yeah, exactly. Especially with that, with the whole world now, with this cancel culture that's happening and with this whole idea of like, natives taking back the land, all of the different things that are happening nowadays, it's changing the world. It's changing the structure of everything now. So,
and it's starting to change our world out here.
Yeah, exactly.
To a degree. I really like that. I don't know if you ever seen that show Cobra Kai.
Oh yeah,
I really like the guy that's the main star in there, Billy Zabka. His character, because then he kind of talks about that. Like back in my day, we were tough, and the world's not gonna get any easier for anybody. So why are we raising our kids to be pansies? I really do appreciate that type of mentality.
Exactly. Well, I think it's time for us to head on out. So what do you say?
Yeah, let's go get some lunch.
All right, perfect. All right, well, thank you again for listening to our rant and, so buying me a battle axe. So.
Yeah, I don't know how our conversation tied into the idea of Rez Mentality, but if you figure it out, let us know. And you can find us on our social accounts. If you're not following us on Facebook, we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can find all of that at Carl and J-Man. And then if you're listening to us on YouTube, don't forget to smash that like button, like and subscribe. Our goal is to hit 100,000 subscribers. Then we get a fancy plaque from YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
And so we're only 999,800 subscribers away.
So just create a bunch of accounts and just hit subscribe. So
I think that's how we got half of our accounts. Carl's got like 100 YouTube accounts.
I got a bunch of 100 YouTube accounts under different names. So if you want to donate to us, please go to anchor.fm/CJ Podcast 85 to donate to become one of our sponsors, or buymeacoffee.com/CJ Podcast if you want to donate something. Also, just make sure that you like and subscribe to everything. Make sure you listen to all of our past episodes, and have a great day.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for listening to Carl and J-Man Save the World podcast. My name is Carl, and this is my best friend, J-Man.
So long.